90 days will not fix your life. Let's start there. 90 days will not make you rich. It will not repair your body. It will not undo every habit you have been carrying for years. Nothing works that fast, and anyone who tells you otherwise is selling you something. But 90 days is enough to prove something. It is enough to show you exactly who you become when you stop waiting and start doing. That proof is worth more than most people realize. Most people think change needs a miracle, a better mood, a new year on the calendar, some sign from the universe telling them it is finally time. They are still waiting for that sign right now, today, while you are listening to this. It does not work that way. It never has. It never will. Knowledge does not change your life. Practiced discipline does. And discipline is not a personality you were born with. It is not something certain lucky people have and you do not. It is a decision you make and then remake every single day until it stops feeling like a decision and starts feeling like who you are. You already know more about your own goals than any video, book, or seminar could ever teach you. You know what the workout is. You know what the budget should look like. You know which relationship needs an honest conversation. More information was never going to be the thing that moved you. Only doing it does that. Jim Rohn said it plainly. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. Most people stand on the goal side of that bridge for years. They write the goal down. They talk about the goal. They tell their friends about the goal. They never cross. Here is what I am going to give you before we are done. A number. A real one. Backed by research. Not a guess, and not a slogan someone printed on a coffee mug. Once you hear it, you will understand exactly why 90 days is not a random round figure. It is the safest bet you can make on yourself. Hold that thought. But first, a story. A man once stood behind a counter folding shirts for about $57 a week. He was 25. He had a wife. He had a baby daughter. He had bills stacking up and nothing in the bank to cover them, and no obvious way out of any of it. By the time that same man turned 31, he was a millionaire. I will tell you exactly who he was and exactly what changed. Not yet. Hold on to that too. Here is the problem almost nobody solves. People know what to do. They know they should train. They know they should read. They know they should make the call, save the money, start the project, apply for the job. Knowledge was never the problem. It was never even close to the problem. The problem is the gap between knowing and doing. Nearly everyone lives inside that gap. Some people live there for 30 years and call it a personality trait instead of what it actually is, which is a habit of delay. Successful people are not the ones who never feel doubt. They feel it constantly, probably more than you do, because they have put themselves in more situations where doubt shows up. The difference is they do not wait for the doubt to leave before they act. They do not wait to feel ready. They do not wait for the perfect Monday, the perfect January, the perfect mood. They move first. The feeling catches up later, if it shows up at all. Sometimes it never does, and they act anyway. Ask yourself something honest right now. How many goals have you already set and quietly abandoned? How many versions of yourself have you promised and never delivered? Not because you lacked the talent, not because you lacked the opportunity, because you kept waiting for a feeling that was never going to arrive on its own. A year from now, your life could look completely different. Not because of one dramatic decision, because of 90 small ones, repeated in order, on the days you felt like it and on the days you absolutely did not. That is the whole secret. There is no other one hiding underneath it. People search for a bigger answer because this one feels too plain to be true. It is true anyway. Think about everything you already want. A stronger body, more money in the account at the end of the month, a calmer household, a skill you keep meaning to pick up. None of that is complicated to understand. A child could explain the basic mechanics of every single one of those goals to you in a sentence. Eat better. Spend less than you earn. Speak more kindly. Practice the thing daily. The mechanics were never the missing piece. If understanding alone were enough, everyone reading this would already have everything they wanted, because everyone already understands the basic mechanics. What is actually missing is 90 uninterrupted days of doing the boring version of the thing you already know you should do. Successful people did not discover a secret the rest of us were never shown. They simply stopped waiting for the discomfort to disappear before they moved. The discomfort never fully disappears for anyone. It just becomes familiar enough to carry without noticing the weight anymore. Now let's talk about the trap that catches almost everyone. Waiting. Waiting to feel motivated. Waiting to feel confident. waiting for the noise in your head to quiet down before you begin. And while you wait, the calendar does not wait with you. Days move, weeks move, months fold into each other so quietly you barely notice them going. Suddenly a year is gone, and nothing has changed, not because you lack the ability, but because you kept negotiating with yourself. You have said it before. Everyone has. I will start Monday. I will start when things calm down. I am just not in the right headspace today. Harmless words on their own, repeated for months. They stop being excuses and start becoming the shape of your life. Your future does not run on your mood. It runs on your actions. Two completely different currencies, and only one of them is ever accepted as payment. Emotions are unreliable narrators. Some mornings you feel unstoppable. Some mornings you feel like staying under the blanket forever. If your actions are tied to whichever one shows up that day, your results will always be just as inconsistent as your mood is. That is not a character flaw. That is simply math. Here is a question worth sitting with. What is the one thing you already know you should be doing, right now, today, that you keep quietly pushing to tomorrow? You do not need me to tell you what it is. You already know. You have known for a while. The challenge was never identifying it. The challenge is doing it on a day you do not feel like doing it. Now, about that man behind the counter. His name was Jim Rohn. He grew up on a farm in Idaho, an only child, raised to work with his hands before he was ever raised to think about careers or ambitions. He left college after a single year and took a job as a stock clerk. That is where the $57 a week comes from. That is where the debt came from too. At 25, a friend invited him to hear a businessman named Earl Schoaf speak. Rohn walked in broke and unsure of himself. He walked out with a mentor. Over the next several years, Schoaf taught him a kind of thinking he had never once been exposed to on that farm or behind that counter. Rohn absorbed it, applied it daily, and built one of the largest sales organizations inside his company. By 31, he was a self-made millionaire. He later became a mentor himself, to a young man you have almost certainly heard of. Tony Robbins worked for Rohn early in his career and has credited him ever since as a foundational influence. For the rest of his life, Rohn stood in front of audiences and told that same story. The stock clerk who changed his direction at 25 and never went back to folding shirts for $57 a week. He spoke for decades, in front of millions of people over the course of his career, and nearly every talk circled back to the same idea. Your income rarely grows past your own personal development. If you want more, you become more first. Notice what actually happened in that story, because it is easy to skip past it. Nobody handed Rohn anything. He did not wake up one morning suddenly disciplined. He heard one idea, decided to apply it, and then applied it again the next day and the next, until the applying itself became the identity. That is the whole model, and it is almost embarrassingly simple. Hear it, apply it, repeat it, until the repetition becomes character. Jim Rohn put it into a sentence people still quote today, decades after he first said it. Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines, practiced every day. Read that again, slowly this time. Not practiced when convenient. Not practiced on the days you feel strong and rested. Every day. That one word is doing all the heavy lifting in that sentence, and most people skip right past it. Some mornings you will wake up sharp and ready to go. Some mornings you will wake up tired and completely unwilling. Both mornings count exactly the same in the final tally. Your future is not grading you on enthusiasm. It is only counting repetitions, quietly, in the background, whether you are paying attention or not. This is why willpower alone fails so many people, no matter how much of it they seem to have. Willpower is a mood, and moods are famously unreliable. Disciplines, plural, small and specific, are a structure. A structure holds up even on the days the mood does not show up for work at all. You do not need 10 new disciplines. You do not need a complete life overhaul starting Monday morning. You need one, done honestly, every day, for 90 days, before you even think about adding a second one. Stacking too many changes at once is exactly how most people quit by day 9. One discipline, done relentlessly, will outperform 5 disciplines abandoned within a week. One page read, one workout finished, one difficult conversation had instead of avoided again. None of these look impressive on the day you do them. That is exactly why most people skip them. They are unimpressive in isolation. They only become powerful once they are stacked in a sequence long enough to compound. Think about the Grand Canyon for a moment. It was not carved by one violent flood in a single afternoon. The same river cut through the same rock, day after day, for an almost unthinkable stretch of time, until the ground itself gave way, and something enormous stood where a flat plain used to be. Your life is being carved the exact same way right now, whether you notice it happening or not. Every day you skip the discipline. The water still runs, just in the wrong direction, cutting a canyon you never intended to build. Every day you keep the discipline. The canyon of the life you actually want gets a little deeper, a little more permanent. Nobody stands at the rim of the Grand Canyon and calls it an accident. It looks inevitable, because by the time anyone sees it, the inevitability has already been carved in. That is exactly what 90 consistent days does to a habit. It stops looking optional and starts looking like it was always going to happen. Most people quit long before that point, and then they blame the discipline itself for not working. They will train for a week and stop, because a week did not visibly change anything. They will read for 4 or 5 days and stop, because 5 days of reading did not make them noticeably smarter. But the river did not carve anything visible in its first week either. It carved a little more each single day, in a way nobody watching could have measured, until one day the measuring became unnecessary because the results were simply standing there. Now here is the part that quietly ends more dreams than outright failure ever does. Procrastination. Not laziness exactly. Delay. I will start tomorrow. I will do it once things settle down a little. I just need a bit more time to prepare properly. Small, reasonable sounding sentences in the moment. Devastating in hindsight. Years later, looking back at all the tomorrows that never actually arrived. Later becomes next week. Next week becomes next quarter. Next quarter quietly becomes another year gone. And the plan is still sitting in the same notebook, untouched, gathering the exact same dust it was gathering 12 months ago. Nobody decides in one dramatic moment to abandon their goals. It happens one postponed Tuesday at a time. So gradually that by the time you notice the pattern, it already has years of evidence behind it, quietly arguing that this is just who you are. It is not who you are. It is only what you have practiced so far. Jim Rohn described this trait in a way that has stuck with people for decades, and it is worth repeating slowly. The pain of discipline weighs ounces. The pain of regret weighs tons. Sit with that comparison for a second. Discipline cost you something small today. An early alarm. One uncomfortable rep. One hard conversation you would rather avoid. Regret cost you something enormous later. A decade you cannot get back. A version of yourself you never got the chance to meet. People do not choose regret because they enjoy pain. Nobody chooses pain on purpose. They choose it because its price tag stays invisible until much later, while the price tag on discipline is due immediately, in cash, today. That is the entire trick procrastination plays on everyone. It hides the real cost and only ever shows you the small fake one. Every expert you admire was once completely unqualified to be admired. Every person who seems to have it figured out started from a position that looked exactly like uncertain, exactly like unready, exactly like you might feel right now. They did not wait for that feeling to resolve itself. They acted while it was still sitting there, unresolved, uncomfortable, and they kept acting until the discomfort quietly lost its grip. You will almost never feel fully ready. Nobody does. Not even the people you admire most. Readiness is not a feeling that arrives before action starts. It is a byproduct action leaves behind afterward, like sawdust after the cutting is already done. You do not get ready and then start. You start, and readiness quietly catches up somewhere around day 11, or day 30, or day 60, depending entirely on the person and the habit. Which finally brings me to the number I promised you at the start of this. Researchers at University College London ran a study, published back in 2009, that tracked 96 people trying to build one simple daily habit. Things like eating a piece of fruit at lunch or going for a short run before dinner. Every single day, participants reported whether they had actually done it and how automatic performing it was starting to feel. The average time it took for a new habit to become fully automatic was 66 days, not 21, despite what nearly every motivational poster on a gym wall insists. 66. And the range across individuals stretched anywhere from 18 days on the fast end all the way to 254 days on the slow end. That is the real number, not a slogan. A measured, published result, sitting quietly in a research journal most people will never bother to open. Now you understand exactly why 90 days is the frame here, and not 30. 30 days barely gets most people to the edge of automaticity, if it gets them there at all. 66 is only the average, which means roughly half the people in that study needed even longer than that. 90 gives you genuine breathing room past the average, enough runway for the habit to stop needing your willpower and start running on its own quiet momentum instead. This is not about becoming a slightly improved version of yourself for 3 months and then quietly stopping once the excitement wears off. It is about using 90 days as the minimum runway required to install something permanent. After that runway, the discipline is not something you do anymore. It is simply something you are. That is the real transformation. And nobody puts it on a highlight reel because it is not photogenic. Not one dramatic day. 90 ordinary ones, stacked in order, each nearly identical to the last, until the person doing them is no longer recognizable as the person who first started. Think back to the stock clerk folding shirts for $57 a week. Nothing about day one of his transformation was dramatic. He did not become a millionaire the week he met Shof. He became someone who showed up daily to apply what he was being taught. For years, quietly, long before anyone outside his own household noticed a difference. The millionaire part was simply what daily discipline eventually looked like from the outside, once enough days had been stacked underneath it. You are not really trying to build a new life here. You are building a new identity, one unremarkable repetition at a time. An identity is the only thing durable enough to outlast a bad mood, a rough week, or a stretch of days where nothing seems to be working at all. So here is where this actually lands for you. Pick one discipline, just one, something specific enough that you cannot quietly lie to yourself later about whether you actually did it. Start today. Not the first of next month. Not Monday. Today, in whatever hours are left of it. Give it the full 90 days. On the days it feels natural and easy, and on the days it feels like the very last thing you want to do, because those second days are the ones that actually count the most. Jim Rohn said, "You cannot change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction overnight." 90 days from today, you will either be standing exactly where you are right now, or you will be standing somewhere you cannot fully picture yet from where you are sitting. The only variable separating those two outcomes is what you decide to do in the next few minutes, not the next 90 days. The next few minutes decide whether the 90 days ever begin at all. Discipline is the bridge. Nobody is going to walk across it for you. Start crossing it today.